So, Felicia, you mentioned that I wrote a book based on my blog, The Art of Eating In. I thought right after that book came out, I really had this dream of writing a cookbook about Taiwanese food for even before that book came out. So I shopped it around to publishers, worked on the proposal, did all that traveling and a lot of research. I started to write a column about Taiwanese food for Serious Eats. It's called Taiwan Eats. So I was already sort of writing about Taiwanese food here and there, developing recipes, tinkering around with them. So it was definitely something I had wanted to do. But once we had the proposal, we shopped it around, absolutely everyone turned it down. Oh. And the reason was that it was just people didn't know what Taiwanese food was. People barely knew what the word Taiwan was.
Sure.
They would get it mixed up with Thai. Mm-hmm. It was embarrassing. Like there was awkward moments and conversations with editors who you could tell was didn't quite understand where in the world we were talking about.
Right.
Oh my God, times have changed. Thankfully.
You're listening to Talking Taiwan with your host, Felicia Lin.
Last year, I came across an article in the Gothamist titled A Taiwanese Food Crawl in the East Village with New York City writer Cathy Erway. I have, of course, heard of Cathy Erway and her cookbook, and I thought to myself, why haven't I had her on Talking Taiwan as a guest yet? For those of you who aren't familiar with Cathy's work, she is a James Beard award-winning food writer and author based in New York City. Her cookbooks include The Food of Taiwan, Recipes from the Beautiful Island, and Winsun Presents, a Taiwanese American Cookbook. Her cookbook, The Food of Taiwan, which was published in 2015, is the first cookbook from a major U.S. publisher to explore the food culture of Taiwan, from home-style dishes to authentic street food. We talked about how publishers rejected the cookbook at first and how it eventually got published. She also has a Facebook page called The Food of Taiwan, and if you're a Taiwanese food lover, I'd highly recommend liking and following it. On the page, Cathy shares news about Taiwanese food, like where to get the best Taiwanese food in and out of Taiwan, and new Taiwanese restaurant openings. Cathy Erway's journalism has appeared in the New York Times, Food and Wine, Eater, Grub Street, Tea, the New York Times Style magazine, and more. She is a columnist at Taste and received the James Beard Award for Home Cooking Journalism in 2019. In 2021, she received the IACP Culinary Award for her column. This episode is part of the Trailblazing Taiwanese Women's series, sponsored by NATWA, the North American Taiwanese Women's Association, which was founded in 1988. To learn more about NATWA, visit their website, www.natwa.com. Now, here's my interview with Cathy Erway.
Welcome to the podcast, Cathy.
Thanks so much, Felicia.
Cathy, I cannot believe that our paths have not crossed with you being the author of The Food of Taiwan and your cookbook collaboration with Josh and Trig of Winsun. I'm glad to finally have you on the podcast.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I'm surprised too. We know a lot of people in comment also in the podcasting world, which is kind of small as well, because I hosted a few podcasts over the years.
Yeah, I saw that. So are you doing that right now at all?
No, I'm not at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. Too many projects sometimes. You gotta pick and choose.
Yeah, sure. So my first question is, I know that you started off with this blog, Not Eating Out in New York, and that led to your first book, right?
Yes.
The Art of Eating In. So how do you go from that to now being pretty much a resource for Taiwanese restaurants in New York? Because I came across your article from last year in the Gothamist that was basically like a Taiwanese American restaurant food crawl in the East Village. So how do you go from eating in to being, the authority on restaurants?
Oh, gosh. Well, I mean, I will clarify that I was sort of a special guest in that article where I was helping the author, Farida, And she basically reached out to me and asked me for some suggestions on where should we go for a food crawl in what neighborhood too, because it's part of a series that Gothamist is doing on various immigrant enclaves and the food and in each of the neighborhoods that they explore. So, I helped come up with that. So I'm more of a home cook expert than a restaurant expert, but naturally, having written The Food of Taiwan and being asked, where should I go eat Taiwanese food if not cooking it myself in my home? I've gotten this question a lot. So, and I'm also extremely eager to check out any Taiwanese restaurant in my wheelhouse or in my neighborhood or in my city and beyond, if possible. So I think it just sort of happened naturally. And also, Felicia, I should mention that since my book came out in 2015, there has just been a wonderful, I would say almost like a renaissance of Taiwanese American restaurateurs throughout the country. And that's something that I've eagerly tracked on my Facebook group called The Food of Taiwan. It's a page that I've had since the book came out, and I just post any interesting news about Taiwanese restaurant openings throughout America. So I've always kept tabs on it. I've had a Google alert on the term Taiwanese food since 20 years now.
Oh, wow.
So it's something that I'm really keen to, and I'm really excited to see, just like it's every other day, there's a new Taiwanese American restaurant somewhere in like the suburbs of like Kentucky, for instance. So it's really exciting to see that.
That's interesting. Yeah, there are some Taiwanese food Facebook groups. Are you members of those? Because I think that one of them that I was in was actually looking to do some kind of a project to track all of the Taiwanese restaurants across the country.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Maybe if I set it up, I can see if they connected with you or not.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But isn't that incredible? It's been 10 years since your book came out, right?
It has. It's been an exciting decade for Taiwanese food, definitely.
Right. So, what do you think has? Wow, well, that's a big question. I was going to say, what do you think has changed? Like, maybe we can narrow it down to like, how has the scene in New York changed in 10 years?
That's a great question. I think that within New York, so Winston opened in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of the first restaurants, I was going to say around the country, but because it is about America, I would say anywhere to really build itself as Taiwanese American food.
Right.
And that shows that they have sort of one foot in each culture, and they're very intentional about that in the food that they create in a playful way. So I think that's exciting. But there's also been exciting restaurants in New York City, and they all are friends, by the way. So 886, Eric C., Whole Foods from Rich Ho. I think Mimi Chang's dumplings is a fantastic example. They have primarily dumplings, but also some other Taiwanese dishes and influences on the menu. What else? There has been some places that have opened and since closed in the last 10 years or so. So I don't want to try to give you a very exhaustive list right now. But I think just from those examples, you'll see a sort of a youthful Taiwanese cuisine emerge. Whereas a lot of the Taiwanese cuisine we have, which is excellent, it's fantastic in New York City, have been sort of older standbys that have been around serving generations of Taiwanese Americans for a while with pretty genuine iterations of foods that you will find in Taiwan. Also, I should mention Yunhai, a Taiwanese pantry and food store in Brooklyn, which is also online. They've also really contributed to the interest in Taiwanese cuisine. And also they do some pop-ups and events and partnerships and collaborations. So they're also tinkering with Taiwanese food in a new and youthful, I would say, way.
Yeah, and I see that Lisa actually has a YouTube cooking series.
Yes, Cooking with Steam.
Yeah. So my wondering these days, do you eat out more or eat in more?
I think I still eat in more, definitely. Well, the other thing, Felicia, is that I had a baby a year and a half ago.
Oh, right.
So I just sort of have been going out, I guess, less since then.
Sure.
And now it's just sort of like I take turns going out.
Right.
with the ladies instead of going out with my husband. So one of us babysits.
Right,
And
right,
so,
right.
yeah.
So how did you first learn to cook? Was that always something that you did in your family?
Always. I was always hanging around the kitchen watching my mother cook. I just always was fascinated. I just wanted to just watch and help out. And I was just always fascinated by what she was doing. And it's great because both my parents love to cook, actually. My father is a white American guy from upstate New York. His style of cooking is completely different than my mother's. My mother's from Taipei, born and raised, only came to the States in her mid-20s. Her style is just, she loves cooking all kinds of foods, but I think that her sort of modus operandi in the kitchen is to throw together things in a stir fry and not follow any recipes, just sort of use her own intuition and choose vegetables that look fresh and then shred some pork and marinate it and toss it all together for a few seconds in a hot pan. That's like a go-to, whereas my father would only know what to do if it was written in a recipe instruction.
Oh, okay. And so would you say that they're also into food?
Definitely. My family just happens to be foodies.
Yeah. I think I heard an interview where you said that your family would sometimes just go and try restaurants, and that was like a thing.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, my parents have always had a keen interest in restaurants. We went to dim sum probably once a week growing up. Yeah. So we were really fond of it. And trying new foods. I have, this memory. My father still has like a takeout menu of the Malaysian restaurant in New Jersey where they live. Or somewhere, within like 30 minutes driving. And he crosses out every dish that he's tried on this paper menu and brings it with him to make sure he only orders things he hasn't tried yet.
Wow, that's dedication.
Yeah.
And enthusiasm. Yeah. Does it make it hard to make a cookbook? Because, a lot of Asian cooking doesn't have measurements, right? So how challenging was that when you were working on the Food of Taiwan?
So many cultures and even just restaurant chefs, they don't necessarily measure. So the purpose of a recipe developer or recipe tester, actually, which is a much more technical position, is to try to just pin down exact measurements. So it's something, that is not very intuitive to many folks. And I'm actually more of an intuitive chef. I don't really, unless I'm like learning something for the first time, I'll read the recipe. But like after the first one or, two times I make a dish, I'll just go by my memory and intuition after that. So, but I know that not everyone is like that. So some people just really like to see and to have that sense of security of following an exact recipe.
Can you talk about your connection to Taiwan and how you got interested in it? Or maybe it's just something that you were always growing up with?
So my mother, I mentioned, came from Taiwan. My uncle, who was very close to my family, who lived with us when we were growing up, he's also from there. My grandparents moved to the States from Taiwan at some point when I was maybe in middle school-ish, that age. So I went to Taiwan when I was young, as a family. But after the point that all my relatives had just moved to the U.S., we didn't really go back. We didn't have any people to visit there. So I didn't go back until I was in college, and an opportunity just sort of came out of nowhere to do a semester abroad in Taipei. And I thought, oh my gosh, of course I want to do that. This is like coming back to, my mother's homeland. I would love to do that. So that's what I did. I guess.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been really fascinated with the food ever since then because it really just, at that age too, as a young child, I don't really think about cooking and stuff like that. But then it just really crystallized for me just how special and unique and delicious the food of Taiwan was.
Right. What kind of research was involved in writing the Food of Taiwan? Because there's actually a lot of information about Taiwan in there, the background, history, so forth.
Thanks, Felicia. My favorite cookbooks are really, I would call it, culture books. They have just the history of the cuisine. They tell you a lot about the culture. Those are the books that I like to read. So I tried to write a book that was in that vein. So I mentioned I studied abroad for a semester, but to make this cookbook to write it, that is. Me and my good friend Pete Lee, who was the photographer for this book, we traveled throughout Taiwan. Then 2 years after that, once we actually finally had a book deal in the works, it took a long time to get a book deal, by the way.
Yeah, tell me that story after this.
Yeah, sure. We went for another 3-week trip where Pete really captured the beautiful essence of Taiwan through photography and rich landscapes and people and food and street scenes and everything. I really think the photography is a huge factor of the book, and it's why people love it. So, I mean, it's really all the credit to Pete for that. But yeah, and that was the trip where I really tried to figure out what all the recipes needed to be in this book. We had some ideas, and Pete was really helpful in this too. He had his family members help out. I had some friends that I'd met from my college days, and we just sort of latched on to people. And it was a little ad hoc, if you will.
Well, the more the merrier. You had a team. Yeah. That's good. So apparently it took a really long time to get the book deal for this, right? What happened there?
Yeah, it was really tough. So, Felicia, you mentioned that I wrote a book based on my blog, The Art of Eating In. I thought right after that book came out, I really had this dream of writing a cookbook about Taiwanese food for even before that book came out. So I shopped it around to publishers, worked on the proposal, did all that traveling and a lot of research. I started to write a column about Taiwanese food for Serious Eats. It's called Taiwan Eats. So I was already sort of writing about Taiwanese food here and there, developing recipes, tinkering around with them. So it was definitely something I had wanted to do. But once we had the proposal, we shopped it around, absolutely everyone turned it down. Oh. And the reason was that it was just, people didn't know what Taiwanese food was. People barely knew what the word Taiwan was.
Sure.
And they would get it mixed up with Thai. Mm-hmm. It was embarrassing. There was awkward moments and conversations with editors who you could tell it was didn't quite understand where in the world we were talking about.
Right.
Oh my God, times have changed, thankfully. But I think that, and also just Asian cookbooks in general. I heard this verbatim from a publisher. Asian cookbooks don't sell, she said.
Wow.
It's okay. Well, is it because, which came first? The chicken or the egg here? Are you not promoting them? Or do you just
I'm curious, is that column that you wrote for Serious Eats on Taiwanese food still up?
It is, yeah.
You can still find it? Okay, great. I just thought, because if it's up, maybe I'll put it in our show notes or something like that.
Great.
Yeah. How would you characterize the recipes in the Food of Taiwan? Would you say that they're, well, I don't like using this word, but are they on the authentic side? Because I know that Josh and Trig, I browsed their book, that they're really not trying to be authentic.
No.
They actually state that, and you actually said that too, because they have their kind of twist on it. Mm-hmm. So how would you describe the recipes in your book?
Oh, thanks so much for asking. Yeah, so because the Food of Taiwan is the first English language cookbook from a major U.S. publisher, there have been community cookbooks. I wanted to very intentionally include all types of food found in Taiwan. That's why I called it the Food of Taiwan, not Taiwanese food, because the latter may indicate a sort of more old-fashioned Taiwanese cuisine, whereas I wanted to sort of give everyone a picture of all the food ways that have sort of converged on the island at this moment. Well, now I'm talking about a decade ago. So in 2015. So that means, most of your listeners will know exactly what that means, but things like wheat-based noodles are included and so forth. Waigoren food is included in this whole mixture of foods found in Taiwan. And I also wanted it to be as sort of representative of what's most uniquely found in Taiwan. So singular dishes that can only be found in Taiwan. That's why I actually didn't have a recipe for xiaolongbao, even though it's a huge hit in Taiwan. It's also a huge hit in Shanghai and also everywhere. And there are some, decisions to be made. Do I include pizza with weird toppings?
Right. Yeah.
But Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of storytelling to share about the dishes and why they're chosen. But I tried to choose, dishes that people will say, yeah, that's totally Taiwanese.
Right, right. If you were to update the book, what do you think you would add or change?
Oh gosh, there's been like a running list of like little things, mostly little things. Honestly, it's such a snapshot in time though. Like for instance, I do have some dishes with like bitter melon, even though when I was recipe testing them, that ingredient was so polarizing to many of my American-based tasters, but I didn't care. So I included those. But for instance, Joe Tsai, or I'm not sure side the hollow chives that are in a dish that is now very beloved in at least in Winston. They love this dish and they serve it.
What dish is that?
Fly's head.
Oh,
Okay, so
right.
so fly's head, I thought it would be hard to find that type of chives, and I tried testing it out with different types of like alliums, and it didn't work, of course, because the whole point of that dish, fly's head, is the crispness of
Yes.
those hollow little crunchy little nuggets of like cylindrical chive.
Yeah.
So I just thought it would be really hard to find the ingredient. Now, with like ordering online, like Amazon, you can get a lot of things nowadays. So I regret that I don't have that recipe in the book. But I have a similar recipe that involves okra for a little like sort of textural interest, which also has the black dosha, like fermented black beans, chilies, and garlic.
No, I appreciate that you took into account that people may need to substitute some ingredients that they can't easily get. So I think that's helpful. And you also collaborated on the Winston cookbook, right?
Yes.
Can you tell me about how that collaboration happened and what was the approach to that book? How is that different from the Food of Taiwan?
Yeah, I mentioned that Winston opened in 2016. Josh and Trig reached out to me prior to opening just because they had my cookbook and it was one of the few resources that they had around Taiwanese food. So I kind of couldn't believe it when I heard that this white guy and this like Taiwanese guy were opening a Taiwanese American restaurant in like Williamsburg, Brooklyn, like the capital of hipsterdom. For anyone, any listeners who are not in the city, but that's basically the kind of vibe that neighborhood has. So I was really surprised, but I met them. I was really impressed with their food. We really, got along great. And they invited me to help cook up some pop-up dinners with them, along with Jeff Fan, who also is a Taiwanese American restaurateur now at Yumpling in Long Island City. And then I basically kind of like helped a little bit, consulted a little bit here and there, and was just sort of kept in touch as a friend. So it just seemed natural, a lot of restaurants, successful restaurants, decide to write a cookbook. They were exploring that, and I sort of like raised my hand and was like, well, if you're looking for a co-writer, I could do that. So one conversation led to another and we shopped the book around. But of course, the whole premise of the book is that it's their style of food, which is very intentionally Taiwanese American. So taking what they know, as born and raised in America, and also just what they like to eat. So Trig is the chef at Winston, and he has worked in many new American restaurants. So he once said that he's like, trying to take all that he's learned about Taiwanese food, but also realizing that he's sort of filtering it through a new American lens in the cooking. But so some dishes are more Taiwanese than you'd think. They make for instance, the oyster omelet at the restaurant is pretty much like they don't mess with that dish too much, which can be a little challenging for some diners who are new to it. It's like, why is this jellyish? What's going on in my omelet? Yeah.
And how is the approach or the style of that book different than the Food of Taiwan?
Okay, for one thing though, just writing the cookbook, we were starting out with restaurant dishes instead of like home cooked dishes. So retooling that to make it easy for a home kitchen setting, changing all the proportions is one thing, but also like making sure we're not using equipment that is only like, really found in restaurants. So, and making it not too difficult, not too chefy. that's one way it's different. But the main way it's different is that theirs is Taiwanese American.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was going for just straight up what you'll find in Taiwan.
Right. And I noticed that there are some actual like conversations between the restaurateurs that you mentioned, right? Like,
Yeah.
there was,
yeah.
So that's kind of an interesting approach to have like Eric from 886 and Lisa from Hi to all converse about something.
Yeah. I think community and collaboration is really key to their philosophy and also to the greater sort of Taiwanese American culinary circle.
Yeah. Oh, and going back to getting your book, The Food of Taiwan, published, it took like about 2 years to get it.
Yeah.
So how did that actually finally come about after all these people?
After I mentioned, you know, it got rejected across the board and I was told that Asian cookbooks don't sell, I kind of was exploring maybe I should self-publish, but I was like still researching, still writing, still cooking and figuring out what I was going to do when I happened to bump into an editor named Justin Schwartz, who at the time was at Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. He's now at Simon & Schuster. He was at Wiley before. He's just a longtime cookbook editor.
Sure.
And he knew me and asked me what I was, you know, working on. And I mentioned this cookbook that never went anywhere. And he was like, well, let me take another look at it. He actually rejected it before. So I literally bumped into him at a bar and that revived the conversation. He took another look at it. He came back and said, you know, my sales team was not thrilled once again because they don't know what to think. There's no precursor for this. Usually a book is like considered a good investment for a publisher if you can show that there's been books like it that were successful. Well, there's no other books like it. So they didn't know, they were unsure what to do. But he eventually convinced them to take on the risk, thinking, okay, maybe it'll like be this backlist staple, because he mentioned some other book where like they took a chance on and it turned out, I think it was like a Korean cookbook, which at that time was like, oh my God, who wants to buy that book? Which is hilarious. I know. Yeah. And he's like, that book actually kept selling, you know, even after the years. So maybe that'll work. So they bought it. It was not a very high figure that they bought it for.
Sure.
That's reflecting their, I guess, you know, confidence in it. And to be honest, Felicia, it didn't like sell like gangbusters right out of the gates, but I didn't really think it would either. I thought it would be a good resource for people who were interested in it. And that's exactly what had happened. I mean, it organically sold. I did a lot of events to promote it, and I still kept, as I mentioned, this Facebook group. I'm still writing about Taiwanese food in various publications for Food and Wine, for Series Eats, for da-da-da-da-da. And I guess people, you know, when they're on Amazon, they saw that it was rated well by other humans on Amazon that wrote in genuine, like organic reviews. So I think that all helped, and people still find it. And now I just have to say, I'm so excited to see other Taiwanese cookbooks, which is great.
Yes, that's true.
Clarissa Wei's, but also Frankie Gau's, and there's also Tiffy Chen's. There's who else? I'm totally forgetting some, but it's Sean. No wait, George. Yeah,
great.
And Winston.
Yeah. And so, what kind of food writing do you do now?
I do a mix. I write a column at an online publication called Taste. It's called Shelf It, and I explore all things related to grocery stores. So, you know, working on a story about frozen dumplings that's coming out next week. Yeah. And then I write occasionally for publications far and beyond. Actually, I did write a story about Q Texture, that is, for Saveur magazine, which is coming out this spring. Actually, it just came out this March. So if you see the new print issue of Saveur, you will see a story about Q Foods, in which I spoke to Mama Liang's founders. They also have a restaurant called Liang's Village in Cupertino, California. Long-standing Taiwanese restaurant, and the second generation, the children, Jessica and Erica, and I'm forgetting the son's name. But anyway, they started a frozen food business called Mama Liang's, where they sell Taiwanese frozen foods that you can ship, and it's a convenience food product. So anyway, long story short, I featured a recipe of theirs, in this sort of feature on cue texture.
Okay. All right. And so, are any of the things that you write sort of investigative? Like, do you uncover any interesting things? Because I'm sure that could happen when you're talking about grocery store foods.
Yeah, I try to. Well, I always incorporate reporting in all my, journalism's pieces. So I don't know how, hard hitting it always is. So, for instance, the piece about frozen dumplings, I'm trying to look at what's new and noteworthy in the world of frozen dumplings. So, I'm speaking with sort of what I'm calling next generation brands of frozen dumplings, of young, you know, Taiwanese and Chinese American owned brands of this wonderful, like, convenience food for the ages. Yeah. So, I'm looking into anything new going on in the world of like the food in question.
I'm just curious if you've uncovered anything curious, fascinating, disturbing. I don't know.
About Taiwanese food or just
Well,
like
in your column,
general?
like, yeah, in general, like,
I mean, I would say everything's pretty interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm interrogating sort of things that we take for granted. Last October, I wrote about tamari and how I took a trip to Japan and how it's actually sort of a different product in Japan than the tamari that we know in the supermarkets in America. And then I kind of investigated that sort of dichotomy in the story.
Are there any up and coming Taiwanese American restaurants? Let's focus on New York that you've heard about and that you'd like to share with my listeners.
Up and coming, like really new?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Or would you like to shout out maybe one like really, really traditional one and then one that's relatively new for my listeners to know about if they want to check something out?
I'm thinking about this one. Well, I feel like everyone knows there's such a sort of small bunch in New York City.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm breaking any news to say that, Tea Company in the West Village is a wonderful tea house that has some beautiful snacks. Have you been there, Felicia?
Yes, I have. I've actually
Okay.
interviewed Elena twice. Yeah.
Yes. It's just a lovely sort of hidden gem.
Yeah. On your recommendation, we went to Yumpling and
Oh,
they told us
great.
that they're opening a location in Midtown.
Oh, no way. That's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Excited to see them expand.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, also, Whole Foods recently expanded to a larger space. They were one of the smallest restaurants I think I've ever seen before. The dining room was like, maybe only 8 seats. So now they
Okay.
have a roomy next door dining room.
Oh, nice. Do you yourself have a favorite Taiwanese food or dish?
I think it's sanbeiji.
Okay.
I'll tell you, Felicia, I love to take the flavors of sanbeiji and
Yes.
apply it to many other foods like tofu if I just have
Yeah.
that, or some
Right.
veggies. I don't know. It's great.
Yeah.
And that's something, you see like the squid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good tip. I never thought to do that.
Mhm.
And what Taiwanese dish or food do you think, if you were to choose, would be the most representative of Taiwan, right? This is always like the debate. Is it like beef noodle soup? Something else?
That's like such an age-old question. I think that you're going to find a couple different camps for this, right? You're going to find the beef noodle soup camp. And I think that a lot of people admit, okay, maybe it's not like it's definitely not the most old-fashioned, but it is so beloved. And I do think that it's uniquely Taiwanese because even though it was created by mainlanders, it's not found in mainland China, right? So it's singular to Taiwan. It's singular of the history and the sort of melting pot of Taiwan. But then you're going to find people who would say that danzai noodle soup is like the more OG, real, Taiwanese noodle soup.
Yeah, interesting. What do you think is one of the least known or most underrated Taiwanese food dishes?
I mean, there's so many favorites. I've been to many now, like Taiwanese food festivals, like the ones in Union Square each year. And
Uh-huh.
I think that you'll see everything. Like they'll have the pig's blood on a stick, which are great. People love it. Owami swa, I think is really good. Underrated. Is anything underrated?
No, I know. Or I mean, maybe like lesser known. Like,
Ooh. Okay, let me think.
maybe that's a better question. Or we don't have to answer this question. That's fine.
Okay, I will say, I remember I moderated a panel event at some point shortly after the Food of Taiwan was published, where we went around the room and we asked, what would you like to see? What kinds of Taiwanese food would you like to see more of in New York City? Because you can't get.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people said the breakfast, things like xiaobing youtiao.
Yeah, the breakfast places in Taipei, when I was there last year, I made a point to take my partner there because he had never experienced it. And, there's one by the Shendao Temple that's so famous, and there's always all these lines.
Well, I was going to say, Felicia,
yes.
Winsun Bakery in particular is serving it, and Whole Foods is serving great Taiwanese breakfast.
Yes.
I was going to say, I think one of my personal faves, I don't know if it's underrated because I feel like you either like it or you don't like it, but it's Xian Doujiang. So it's the savory soy milk with all the stuff. And they make homemade soy milk at Whole Foods and Winsun, and it's so good. I don't know. I hope, I guess a lot of other people are ordering it and enjoying it too because they still have it on the menu.
Yeah.
But,
Okay. Yeah. Do you have any upcoming book projects or anything in the works that you'd like to share with me?
A lot of projects. I don't have any announcements to share at this time though.
Okay. So if people want to learn more about you or to read your column, where can they find all that?
They can find at my website, CathyErway.com.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Cathy. A pleasure having you on the podcast finally.
Yes, thanks so much. It's great to connect.
I've been speaking with the award-winning food writer and cookbook author, Cathy Erway. This episode is part of the Trailblazing Taiwanese Women's series, sponsored by NATWA, the North America Taiwanese Women's Association, which was founded in 1988. To learn more about NATWA, visit their website, www.natwa.com.